There are truths that the Imperium dares not speak, secrets so dangerous that even to whisper them is to risk the corruption of the soul. But hidden beneath the veil of reality lies a sea of madness, a dimension not bound by stars or matter. It is the warp, a realm of infinite possibility and infinite damnation, and from its depths came gods of hunger, wrath, despair, and desire, the chaos powers. They were not created by some distant hand of divinity. They were born from us, from the hearts of mortals themselves. This is their story, the Imperium, the warp, the sea of souls. Countless names have been given to that impossible dimension that exists alongside the material universe. To most of the Imperium's citizens, it is nothing more than a tool, the medium through which ships travel at faster than light speeds. To the priests of the ecclesiarchy, it is a cursed realm, the domain of demons and heresy. And to the Inquisition, it is a truth best left unspoken. But the warp is not a place in the sense mortals understand. It is not built from atoms or molecules, but from thoughts, emotions, and psychic resonance. Where our universe is made of matter and energy, the warp is made of raw feeling. Anger, joy, terror, ambition. These emotions do not vanish when felt. They echo, they accumulate, they ripple across the immaterial void. And when billions of sentient minds scream together across millennia, their voices become storms. Imagine, if you dare, a sea without a bottom, a sky without a horizon. Colors twist into impossible shades. Shapes coil into forms that defy geometry. It is a nightmare that bends to thought, a place where fear becomes claw and shadow becomes blade. Time itself flows like liquid, looping upon itself, stretching, contracting, and often ceasing to have meaning at all. Within this ocean, nothing is stable, nothing is safe, and yet, from this chaos, consciousness took form. Long before the Imperium, long before mankind reached for the stars, the warp was already alive with the thoughts of countless species. Each sentient race added its voice to the storm. The ancient Eldari, whose psychic presence burned brighter than 1,000 suns, poured endless desire, pride, and artistry into the warp. The crude orcs, brutal and simple, filled it with endless waves of hunger for battle. Humanity, vast in number and volatile in emotion, became one of the greatest contributors of all, fueling the immaterial with hope, despair, love, and rage. Over time, these emotions did not merely ripple. They condensed. Like clouds gathering into a storm, feelings began to crystallize into entities, minds without bodies, spirits without form. They fed on the tides of emotion, growing greater with every century. And eventually, they became gods. But these were not gods of light or benevolence. They were reflections of the darkest truths of mortal existence, magnified to infinity. They were the embodiment of extremes, the inevitable consequence of what it means to feel. The Imperium of man calls them the four great powers of chaos. Others name them ruinous powers. Demons call them masters. To most sane mortals, they are terrors best not named. But make no mistake, they are real. Their power can shatter worlds, twist flesh, and consume souls. Yet the most terrible truth is this: they are us. Each of these gods is born from mortal thought. Without anger, there is no Khorne. Without ambition, there is no Tzeentch. Without fear of death, no Nurgle. Without desire, no Slaanesh. To destroy them, one would have to erase the very emotions that define existence itself. And so the Chaos Gods are eternal. As long as one mortal being feels rage, as long as one desperate soul fears the grave, as long as one dreamer longs for change, as long as one hand reaches for forbidden pleasure, they shall endure. For most of galactic history, the Chaos Gods have remained hidden, whispering through dreams and visions, luring mortals into their service. They are patient, eternal, and subtle. An entire world may fall to their influence long before its rulers even suspect corruption. Armies may march in their name without ever knowing the true master they serve. And a single whispered promise, delivered in a dream, has toppled empires greater than the Imperium itself. Those who hear these whispers rarely recognize them for what they are. To a warrior on the battlefield, Khorne's call sounds like the promise of strength. To the scholar, Tzeentch's lies appear as truths waiting to be unveiled. To the dying and the diseased, Nurgle's rot feels like salvation. And to the artist or hedonist, Slaanesh's caress is indistinguishable from inspiration. The gods of chaos rarely reveal their full horror until it is far too late. The exact moment when each chaos god first awakened is debated among the savants of the Imperium and forbidden historians of chaos. But fragments of knowledge remain. Khorne, the first to stir, is believed to have taken form during the earliest wars of sentient species, when blood was first spilled not for survival, but for power. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, grew in the shadows of ambition and hope, drawing strength as civilizations rose and schemed for dominance. Nurgle awoke when mortals first knew despair at death, when plagues swept across primitive worlds and the inevitability of decay became known. Slaanesh, youngest of all, was birthed in cataclysm, the psychic excess of the Eldari collapsing into one vast scream of pleasure and horror. Each god's awakening reshaped the warp forever, carving domains of horror into the sea of madness. Today, the warp is not only a place of power, but of predators. Demons roam its ever-shifting landscapes, extensions of the gods themselves. They are fragments of divine will, shards of emotion made flesh. For every mortal who dares reach into the warp, through sorcery, through psychic power, through warp travel, there is the risk of being devoured. To many within the Imperium, the warp is hell itself. And perhaps they are not wrong. It is a place of torment, temptation, and endless war. But unlike the hells of ancient Terran myth, this hell is real, and it hungers for every soul that exists. The Imperium's dogma declares the Emperor to be the sole divine being of humanity. The ecclesiarchy preaches that chaos is a lie, a corruption, a trick, but the truth cannot be erased. The warp is real. The chaos gods are real. They are not myth. They are inevitabilities. Even now the great game continues, Khorne battling Tzeentch, Nurgle resisting Slaanesh, while mortals suffer as pawns in a game they cannot understand. The Imperium's greatest warriors fight to resist them, but resistance itself feeds the eternal cycle. For every drop of blood spilled in defiance, Khorne grows stronger. For every whispered prayer for change, Tzeentch listens. For every tear shed in despair, Nurgle laughs. For every guilty indulgence, Slaanesh feasts, and so, the gods of chaos endure. Their birth was not a single moment, but a process as long as existence itself. They are eternal, terrible, and closer to us than our own breath. But among them, one rose first. One god stood upon a throne of skulls, howling his dominion across the warp. His name is Terror and Slaughter. His creed is blood and war, and his throne is built upon the corpses of all who resist him. He is Khorne, the blood god, and his story begins on the battlefield, where rage drowns reason, and rivers of blood mark the path to damnation. The battlefield is never silent. Even when the guns fall still and the warriors lie broken, the echoes remain. The earth drinks deep of blood, and the air thickens with the screams of the dying. In those echoes, in that endless cycle of death, a voice rises above all others. A voice that does not speak, but roars. That roar is the creed of Khorne, the blood god, the lord of skulls, the first of chaos's dark pantheon. Khorne is rage without end, violence without purpose beyond itself. He is the god of bloodshed, of martial pride and slaughter. To his followers he is strength, honor, and victory. To his enemies he is the inevitable death waiting at the end of every war. Unlike other gods of chaos, Khorne does not cloak himself in subtlety or deception. His presence is as direct as a blade to the throat. Where war rages, where armies clash, his name is whispered, whether by those who worship him or those who curse him. He does not demand elaborate rituals or secret sacrifices. His altar is every battlefield. His hymn the clash of steel, his prayers the shedding of blood. The creed of his faith is simple and terrible. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Khorne is often envisioned as a towering warrior clad in brass and blood-stained armor, seated upon a throne built of skulls. This throne is not metaphorical. It is an ever-growing mountain, each skull belonging to an enemy slain in his name, a champion sacrificed to his glory, or a world destroyed in his honor. His realm within the warp is an infinite battlefield, where rivers of gore flow endlessly and the skies rain fire. Demons clash eternally in his name, for even in eternity there is no peace from his hunger. To gaze upon his form is to know terror absolute. His eyes burn like furnaces, his breath is the stench of carnage, and his voice shakes the warp itself. But perhaps the most horrifying truth is that Khorne does not require worshippers to call his name aloud. Every act of bloodshed, whether in his honor or not, empowers him. The universe itself bleeds for Khorne. Among the Chaos gods, Khorne was the first to awaken. His birth came not in one moment, but in countless acts of war across the stars. When the first sentient beings turned their weapons not against predators, but against each other, when pride, anger, and hatred led to slaughter, those echoes birthed him. The earliest wars of ancient species, long forgotten to history, were his cradle. As civilizations rose and fell, their armies clashed and their blood soaked the earth, Khorne's consciousness grew stronger. By the time humanity began its first wars on Terra, Khorne's throne was already towering with skulls. By the time the Great Crusade expanded across the galaxy, Khorne's name was written in the screams of 10,000 worlds. It is said that Khorne despises sorcery, viewing it as cowardice. To him, the only honorable path is strength of arm, the clash of warrior against warrior. While this is true, it is not mercy. Khorne does not care if the blood flows from the guilty or the innocent, from the strong or the weak. He does not care if the warrior strikes with a sword, an axe, or his bare hands. All that matters is that blood is spilled. To Khorne, war is the ultimate expression of existence. Peace is weakness. Mercy is weakness. Every living thing is born to fight, and the one who dies with blood upon his hands is the one who has truly lived. But though Khorne despises weakness, he is not blind to cunning. Generals, tacticians, and champions who wage great wars in his name find his favor just as surely as berserkers drenched in gore. For in the end, it is the scale of the slaughter, the magnitude of the bloodshed, that pleases him most. Mortals who fall to Khorne's call are many, for his creed is the easiest to follow. Soldiers on battlefields, killers in the shadows, entire armies who find honor only in slaughter. They all hear his roar in their hearts. Some worship him openly, painting his symbols in blood, raising skulls upon pikes. Others do so unknowingly, every act of rage and murder feeding his throne. But among his most fanatical followers are the World Eaters, once the Murinid Legion of Space Marines, led by the Primarch Angron, whose very veins burned with implanted rage. They became the favored sons of the Blood God, through the use of the Butcher's Nails, devices that drove them into uncontrollable fury. They became berserkers whose every battle was a storm of slaughter. The World Eaters waged war across the galaxy, their war cries drowning in the chant, "Blood for the Blood God." Even after 10,000 years, their rage has not diminished. Their armies tear across the stars, each battle a ritual of devotion to Khorne. Within the warp, Khorne's legions are as fearsome as any mortal army. At their head are the Bloodthirsters, towering demons clad in brass, wielding whips and axes of impossible size. They are the very image of Khorne's fury, generals of his endless wars. Below them swarm the Bloodletters, daemons of murder incarnate, each carrying the dreaded Hellblade, a weapon that burns with the fury of the warp. These demons are relentless, hunting souls to add to their master's throne. Even his beasts reflect his creed. The flesh hounds of Khorne track sorcerers across the battlefield, despising the arcane with savage fury. To face them is to be hunted without rest until the throat is torn and the skull claimed. Throughout history, Khorne's influence has shaped some of the greatest massacres the galaxy has ever known. The Horus Heresy. During the galaxy-spanning civil war, Khorne's hand guided many of the bloodiest conflicts. Entire legions fell into his service, their battlefields echoing with his name. The First War for Armageddon. In this brutal conflict, the demonic Primarch Angron led a host of Khorne's demons to the world of Armageddon. The blood spilled in those battles still feeds Khorne's throne. The skull harvests of Scalathrax. The World Eaters themselves tore each other apart in a frenzy of bloodletting, a war that pleased Khorne more than any victory. For even betrayal and slaughter among his chosen are offerings to his hunger. Every war, every massacre, every river of blood is another hymn to his power. To mortals, Khorne's creed can seem almost noble. He despises cowardice. He values strength. He rewards bravery in battle. Some even call him a god of martial honor. But this is a lie, for Khorne does not care whose blood is spilled. He does not distinguish between the innocent and the guilty, the soldier and the child. To him, all blood is equal. The worshipper who claims to kill for Khorne's honor soon discovers the truth. He is merely another skull for the throne. Even his champions, those who rise to greatness in his name, are not spared. The demon princes who serve him are eternal warriors, yet even they live in fear that one day their skulls will be torn from their bodies and placed upon the throne. Khorne's hunger is eternal and it devours all, even those who feed it most. Khorne's rage is not only turned outward. Within the warp, he wages ceaseless war against the other gods of chaos. Against Tzeentch, he rails in fury, despising the trickery and deception of the Changer of Ways. Against Nurgle, he clashes endlessly, their realms spilling blood and filth into each other. Against Slaanesh, his wrath is unending, for he despises the gods' indulgence and weakness. Yet even as he wars against them, he cannot destroy them. For just as they feed upon their own domains of emotion, Khorne feeds upon his. As long as war exists, as long as anger burns in the hearts of mortals, his throne will never be empty. In the end, Khorne is not only a god of battle, he is battle itself. Every scream of rage, every act of violence, every war waged from the dawn of time until the end of eternity, all are his. He is the roar in the soldier's throat, the blood on the executioner's blade, the rage in the betrayed heart. His creed is endless, his hunger eternal. And so long as a single drop of blood falls in violence, the blood god shall rise to claim it. But war is not the only weapon chaos wields. If Khorne is rage, then another is cunning. Where the blood god roars, the changer of ways whispers. And in the shadows of destiny, his schemes stretch beyond imagination. His name is Tzeentch. The galaxy is never still. Plans unfold within plans, and fates twist like threads in a loom no mortal mind can comprehend. Whispers echo in the void, painting false truths, weaving illusions so complete that even reality bows before them. And above it all, 1,000 eyes blink open in the warp. Each eye watches, schemes, manipulates. This is the dominion of Tzeentch, the changer of ways, the architect of fate, the eternal liar whose truth is change itself. If Khorne is rage and slaughter, then Tzeentch is change incarnate. He is the embodiment of ambition, transformation, sorcery, and destiny. To mortals, he is a promise of power, of knowledge, of freedom from the chains of reality. To his enemies, he is the great deceiver, a god whose every word carries 1,000 meanings and whose every gift becomes a curse. Tzeentch does not merely represent change in the physical sense, but change of all kinds: political upheaval, personal ambition, spiritual awakening, betrayal, innovation, revolution. He is the spark that drives empires to rise and fall, the whisper that convinces the pauper to overthrow the king, the burning desire in a sorcerer's heart to grasp truths forbidden. Unlike Khorne, who roars his creed in fury, Tzeentch's voice is the whisper that never ceases. To worship him is to enter a labyrinth with no exit, a puzzle whose pieces shift endlessly. For even those who believe they understand him soon realize that every scheme is just a shadow of a greater one, every truth merely a mask for another lie. In the Imperium, Tzeentch's realm is a maddening dreamscape of impossible colors, ever-shifting palaces and labyrinthine towers that spiral into infinity. Rivers of raw magic flow through skies that shimmer with hues unknown to mortal sight. Every brick, every step, every horizon changes the moment it is observed, for Tzeentch abhors permanence. At the center of this ever-shifting domain sits the impossible fortress, a citadel of paradox. Its walls are impenetrable, yet broken in 1,000 places. Its gates are always open, yet cannot be entered. Even the greatest demons of the warp are lost in its halls, forever wandering, forever scheming. Here Tzeentch resides, though to reside is misleading, for he is not bound to form. Sometimes he manifests as a robed figure with 1,000 avian features, sometimes as a vast flaming eye, sometimes as a storm of voices whispering contradictions. He is all these and none, for to define him is to limit him, and Tzeentch cannot be limited. Mortals often depict Tzeentch through symbols of eyes and fire, for he sees all and burns away falsehood with revelation, or perhaps with new lies. The twisting spiral, ever-changing yet eternal, is his mark. Avian imagery abounds, for the bird is ever in motion, never still, never content to walk the same ground. Colors associated with Tzeentch shift as much as his nature, though shimmering blues, purples, and iridescent gold are most common. His warriors and sorcerers often paint their armor in such hues, shimmering like fire under the warp's touch. Those who fall into Tzeentch's grasp are often seekers of power and knowledge. Unlike Khorne's berserkers who are consumed by rage, the followers of Tzeentch are consumed by ambition. Kings who wish to hold power forever, scholars who crave knowledge forbidden, rebels who long to tear down tyrants, all find themselves whispering prayers to the architect of fate. Some worship him knowingly, painting his mark, offering sacrifices in secret rituals of fire and shadow. Others are his pawns without ever realizing it, manipulated into choices that serve his schemes. Every rebellion, every coup, every discovery that shatters an empire's stability adds fuel to his throne. But the most devoted are his sorcerers. Tzeentch is the undisputed master of magic, and all warp-born sorcery is ultimately his gift, or his curse. Every spell cast, every psychic power unleashed, feeds his endless hunger. Those who pursue mastery of the warp inevitably fall into his coils, whether they call his name or not. Perhaps no mortals embody Tzeentch's power more than the Thousand Suns Legion. Once the Xfidi Legion of the Space Marines, their destiny was shaped by their Primarch, Magnus the Red, a being of immense psychic talent, whose thirst for knowledge rivaled even the gods. The Thousand Sons were cursed from the start. Their genetic legacy carried instability, producing mutants and sorcerers alike. Magnus sought to master the warp to cure his sons, and in doing so drew ever closer to Tzeentch. When the Horus heresy shattered the Imperium, Magnus pledged himself and his legion to the Changer of Ways. Yet even this allegiance came with ruin. The legion's sorcery grew unstable, their warriors dissolving into dust within their armor. In desperation, Magnus allowed his chief librarian, Ahriman, to enact the rubric, a ritual meant to save the legion. Instead, it damned them. Most of the Thousand Sons became rubric marines, soulless suits of armor filled with dust, bound to eternal servitude. Only the most powerful sorcerers retained their minds and bodies. This was Tzeentch's true gift, a cruel irony, preserving the legion forever yet stripping away their humanity. The Thousand Sons now serve as Tzeentch's most faithful mortal warriors, sorcerers of unimaginable power, wielding warp-born fire across the galaxy. They are scholars and warlocks, rebels and manipulators, forever cursed yet forever devoted. Tzeentch's demonic legions reflect his nature, ever-shifting, mocking, unpredictable, lords of change, vast, avian demons, towering beings of feathers, fire and shifting forms. They are Tzeentch's generals, each a master of sorcery and cunning, capable of rewriting reality with a gesture. Yet even they plot endlessly against each other, for betrayal is their nature. Horrors of Tzeentch, demons born of pure madness and flame. Pink horrors split into two blue horrors when slain, and these in turn split into smaller brimstone horrors. To kill them is to create more, a mockery of finality. Flamers of Tzeentch, creatures that spew warp fire capable of unmaking matter. Their flames burn not only flesh, but the very essence of reality. Screamers, demonic manta-like beasts that soar through the warp and the void, slashing prey apart with jaws and tails. They are living knives, feeding upon the chaos of battle. Every demon of Tzeentch embodies contradiction, chaos, and trickery. Even among themselves they conspire endlessly, their whispers echoing the ceaseless schemes of their master. To speak of Tzeentch's schemes is to acknowledge that most history is already in his grasp. For every great betrayal, every civil war, every heresy, there are whispers that his hand guided it. The Horus heresy. Though Horus was favored by chaos undivided, it was Tzeentch's influence that set many dominoes in motion, twisting prophecies, whispering lies, and feeding ambitions. Some claim that even Horus himself was but a pawn in Tzeentch's grand game. The rise of Ahriman. After the rubric, Ahriman became a wanderer, spreading forbidden knowledge and sorcery across the galaxy. Many argue this was Tzeentch's true goal, to scatter fragments of his will through Ahriman's endless journey. The schemes against the Eldar. It is said that Tzeentch played no small part in the fall of the Eldari, whispering desires that ultimately birthed Slaanesh. Whether true or not, he gained greatly from their collapse. And yet, for all these plots, none can ever be fully untangled. For every scheme uncovered is merely the surface of another, larger one. Tzeentch is not merely deception and sorcery, he is also hope. To mortals he offers dreams of betterment, freedom, power. He whispers that tomorrow can be different from today, that chains can be broken, that kings can fall, but every promise carries poison. The scholar who seeks forbidden truths finds himself cursed. The rebel who topples his tyrant becomes the tyrant himself. The sorcerer who grasps for power finds his soul enslaved. Tzeentch is both the giver and destroyer of hope. He is ambition made flesh, but ambition without end is damnation. For those who serve him never find fulfillment, only the endless hunger for more. Among the dark pantheon, none clash more bitterly than Khorne and Tzeentch. Khorne despises sorcery as weakness, while Tzeentch thrives upon it. To Khorne, Tzeentch's whispers are cowardice. To Tzeentch, Khorne's rage is stupidity. Their realms bleed into each other in endless war. Yet neither can triumph, for rage feeds ambition as ambition feeds rage. With Nurgle, the relationship is paradoxical. Nurgle represents stagnation, the inevitability of decay, while Tzeentch is constant change. And yet, change leads to decay, and decay often sparks change. They are enemies locked in eternal contradiction, yet bound together. With Slaanesh, Tzeentch shares a dance of indulgence and desire. For ambition and excess often walk hand in hand. Many of Tzeentch's pawns fall into Slaanesh's embrace, and many of Slaanesh's worshippers are lured by Tzeentch's promises. To serve Tzeentch is to serve change without end. to be a piece upon a board whose rules shift with every breath. He is the fire of ambition, the hunger of knowledge, the whisper of rebellion, the curse of hope. Every scheme, every plot, every destiny twisted leads back to him. He is the liar whose lies become truth, the truth that breeds more lies. But not all change is born of ambition. Not all whispers promise power. Some promise comfort, love within rot, joy within despair, hope within decay. And in the shadow of Tzeentch's fire, another god waits with open, rotting arms. His name is Nurgle. In the depths of the warp lies a place of contradiction. It is a garden vibrant with growth, overflowing with life, yet riddled with decay. The air is thick with the scent of sweet rot, buzzing with the laughter of children made from pus and filth. Towering trees sag under the weight of swollen fruit, bursting with maggots that spill like honey. And at the heart of this corrupted paradise sits a corpulent figure, vast and jovial, his flesh spilling in folds upon folds, each sore weeping with disease, each laugh echoing with mirth. He stirs his cauldron of pestilence with love, brewing plagues for his children. This is Nurgle, the Plague Father, the Lord of Decay, the eternal paradox of death and life entwined. Among the dark pantheon of chaos, Nurgle is perhaps the most paradoxical. He is rot, disease, entropy, the inevitable end of all things. Yet he is also laughter, resilience, and strange comfort. Unlike the fury of Khorne or the scheming of Tzeentch, Nurgle offers something both terrible and seductive: acceptance. Where Tzeentch embodies change, Nurgle embodies inevitability. All things decay, all things die, all things rot, and in that truth, there is a kind of peace. Mortals fight against time, against death, against disease. Nurgle whispers to them, "Why struggle? Surrender and you will suffer no more. For in my embrace, decay is not terror, but release." He is the god of plague and pestilence, of festering wounds and unstoppable contagion. But he is also the god of endurance, of the stubborn will to live despite endless suffering. His followers do not fear his gifts, they welcome them, for his plagues free them from fear of death. To rot is to live forever, to be remade in his joyous image. Nurgle is called grandfather by his worshippers. His love is unconditional, his arms open wide for all who despair. To those racked with disease, starving in famine, broken by despair, his voice is a balm. He offers not escape from suffering, but the transformation of suffering into joy. In this lies his paradox. His gifts are horror to the healthy, yet bliss to the broken. A man racked by plague may weep as his body rots away, but in the laughter of Nurgle's children he finds companionship. The dying woman who cannot breathe finds her lungs filled with the buzzing song of flies, carrying her to a new existence in his embrace. To serve Nurgle is to abandon fear of death, for his followers believe there is no true ending, only change into another form. As flesh rots, new life bursts forth. Maggots, flies, spores, bacteria. This is Nurgle's miracle. Death feeding life, rot sustaining growth, despair giving birth to joy. The Garden of Nurgle is a place of contradictions, a paradise of decay. Within the warp it sprawls endlessly, a living swamp of giant fungi, twisted trees and bubbling swamps. It is vibrant, fertile, overflowing with life, but all of it is grotesque. Colossal insects buzz through the diseased skies. Rivers of slime flow between hills of putrid flesh. Flowers bloom with colors unknown to mortals, their petals dripping with pus. Nurglings giggle as they swing from branches, their laughter echoing with sickly delight. At the heart of this garden sits Nurgle himself, stirring his vast cauldron. Within it bubble the greatest plagues the galaxy has ever known, each one a living contagion crafted with care and affection. When ready, these plagues are gifted to his followers, unleashed upon the mortal realm, spreading despair and joy alike. It is said that mortals who glimpse this garden do not recoil, but weep with strange comfort, for it is both terrible and welcoming. To walk among its buzzing swarms is to surrender to inevitability, to embrace the truth that all things must rot, and that in rot there is renewal. Those who fall to Nurgle often come not from ambition or rage, but from despair. The plague victim who finds no cure, the refugee starving in the ruins of war, the desperate soul abandoned by all others. These are the ones who turn to the Plague Father. They cry out for mercy, and Nurgle answers. He offers not healing, but transformation. Their bodies swell with disease, but their minds are filled with joy. Their sores burst, but their spirits laugh. For once they accept him, pain is no longer agony but a gift. Entire cults rise in his name, spreading contagion with hymns of joy. their skin sloughing from their bones as they dance in celebration. To outsiders, they are monsters, oozing, bloated, deformed. But among themselves, they are family, brothers and sisters embraced by grandfather's love. To Nurgle's followers, every cough is a prayer, every wound a blessing, every plague a miracle. Where others see horror, they see joy. This is his greatest cruelty and his greatest seduction. No tale better illustrates Nurgle's corruption than that of the Death Guard. Once they were the 14th Legion of the Emperor's Space Marines, led by their grim Primarch Mortarion. Born upon a poisoned world choked with toxic mists, Mortarion despised weakness and strove to free his people from suffering. His hatred of tyranny and his grim endurance shaped his legion into warriors who could withstand anything. But endurance became stagnation. Strength became obsession. And when the Horus heresy raged, the Death Guard found themselves stranded in the warp, their fleet adrift, their bodies consumed by plague. For weeks they suffered, their flesh rotting, their armor fusing with their skin. They cried out for salvation, and Nurgle answered. Mortarion himself fell, pledging his sons to the plague god. In an instant, they were remade. No longer racked by disease, they became its bearers. Their flesh hardened into pus-ridden resilience, their lungs filled with the buzzing song of endless infection. The Death Guard were reborn as the favored sons of Nurgle, indestructible warriors of pestilence. Now they spread as gifts across the galaxy, carrying contagion on bolter and scythe. Their armor oozes slime, their weapons drip with corruption. They laugh as they march through fire and death, unstoppable, for pain no longer touches them. In every system they conquer, new plagues are born, new followers rise, and Nurgle's joy spreads ever wider. Nurgle's demonic legions reflect his paradox of horror and joy. Great unclean ones, vast, corpulent demons, each a reflection of Nurgle himself. They are jovial, laughing, filled with paternal affection for their foes even as they slaughter them. Their bloated bellies split open with maggots and disease, yet their laughter rings with warmth. They do not kill in hatred, but in joy. Every death a gift to grandfather. Nurglings, tiny, mischievous demons born from the sores of great unclean ones. They swarm like children, laughing, biting, spreading disease wherever they go. They are pests and playthings both, adored by their god. Beasts of Nurgle, hulking slug-like creatures that rush to play with mortals, smothering them in slime until they drown. They mean no harm, but their affection is fatal. Plague drones and rot flies, gigantic insects mounted by Nurgle's riders that buzz across battlefields, carrying contagion and filth. Their wings drone like funeral bells, their stingers dripping with decay. Each demon embodies his love twisted into horror. They are not cruel, they are joyful. And in that joy lies their true terror. To mortals, disease is terror. To Nurgle's followers, it is liberation. His plagues free them from fear of death, from the chains of mortality. A cough becomes a hymn. A wound becomes a badge of love. Every sore, every fever, every swarm of flies is proof of grandfather's care. They do not see themselves as cursed, but as chosen. For every infection they spread joy. Every plague-ridden village that falls to its knees in delirium becomes another family under Nurgle's care. To outsiders, this is madness. But to those within, it is love beyond measure. Nurgle stands opposed most strongly to Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch is change, Nurgle is stagnation. Where Tzeentch offers ambition, Nurgle offers resignation. They are locked in eternal contradiction, their realms clashing in the warp. Yet each feeds the other, for despair often breeds ambition, and ambition often ends in despair. With Khorne, Nurgle shares less rivalry, for bloodshed breeds corpses, and corpses breed rot. Yet Khorne despises Nurgle's laughter, seeing in it weakness. Nurgle, in turn, sees Khorne as a child who does not understand that rage fades, while decay endures. With Slaanesh, Nurgle dances a subtler dance. Excess leads to decay, pleasure to rot. Many who seek Slaanesh's delights eventually fall to Nurgle's embrace, when their indulgence leaves them broken and diseased. Where Slaanesh offers fleeting ecstasy, Nurgle offers eternal endurance. Across millennia, Nurgle's plagues have reshaped the galaxy. Entire systems have fallen silent under his touch. Populations reduced to bubbling sludge, armies brought low by a single cough. Legends speak of the Destroyer Hive, a plague so virulent it turned entire planets into seething pits of crawling life. Others whisper of the zombie plague, raising the dead to shamble in endless hunger. And always, the Death Guard carry new contagions, their ships trailing clouds of disease that linger for centuries. No empire can withstand him forever. Walls crumble under rust. Fleets rot in their docks. Even stars grow cold in time. Nurgle's laughter echoes through eternity, for he knows all things end. Why then do mortals embrace such horror? The answer is simple. They have nothing else. To the hopeless, Nurgle offers hope. To the broken, he offers love. To the dying, he offers life of a new, twisted kind. When famine racks a world, Nurgle's cults rise as saviors, offering food tainted with his blessings. When plague spreads, his followers preach not despair but joy, teaching that disease is not the end but the beginning. And when death comes, they laugh, for in death there is life everlasting in Grandfather's garden. This is his true power. Not the plagues, not the rot, but the comfort. The comfort of inevitability, of surrender, of acceptance. Against this, no empire, no faith, no fortress can stand forever. And so the galaxy rots. Not in silence, but in laughter. Not in fear, but in joy. For the Plague Father's love is endless. His arms always open, his gifts always spreading. His children dance in decay, his armies march in filth, his garden grows forever. But not all who fall to chaos seek comfort. Some seek pleasure, some seek sensation so sharp it tears the soul apart. Some crave the ecstasy of perfection, the doom of excess. And for them, another god waits, the youngest, yet the hungriest. Their name is whispered with both lust and terror. Slaanesh, the prince of excess. There are hungers that no feast can sate, desires that no lover can fulfill, dreams that no triumph can complete. They begin as whispers, gentle, alluring, promising perfection, beauty, ecstasy. But whispers grow into songs, and songs into screams. And at their end lies only one voice, one presence, one God. A figure of exquisite horror, beautiful and terrible, whose every gesture is both salvation and damnation. This is Slaanesh, the prince of excess, the dark prince, she who thirsts. Born of the galaxy's greatest indulgence, destined to feast upon every soul who dares to dream of more. Among the gods of chaos, Slaanesh is the youngest, yet their birth was the most catastrophic event in galactic history. Unlike Khorne, who grew from slaughter, or Nurgle, who arose from despair, Slaanesh was not born of war or suffering, but of pleasure. For millennia, the Eldari Empire dominated the galaxy. Their mastery of technology and psychic power elevated them above all other species. Yet, in their ascendance, they fell into decadence. No longer burdened with survival, they turned inward, seeking sensation, perfection, indulgence, art, philosophy, lust, cruelty. Every desire was pursued without restraint. Entire worlds became temples of pleasure, their populations devoted to nothing but indulgence. Pain and joy blurred. Life and death became games. The Eldari reached beyond morality, beyond restraint, until the warp itself began to swell with their excess. And from that ocean of psychic corruption, something stirred. It grew, fed by every act of indulgence, every scream of ecstasy, every sin of pride, until, at last, it was born. Slaanesh awoke, and, in awakening, consumed. The psychic explosion of their birth tore through reality. The Eldari Empire was annihilated in an instant. Worlds burned. Souls were devoured. An entire species screamed as their god claimed them. The force of this cataclysm tore a hole in the fabric of reality. The Eye of Terror, a vast wound where the warp and the material universe bleed into each other. To this day it festers, a scar of the Dark Prince's birth, and the Eldari, once rulers of the galaxy, became a shattered remnant. Every one of them, from the noblest exarch to the lowliest outcast, carries Slaanesh's curse. At the moment of death, their souls are drawn into the prince's endless hunger. They call Slaanesh she who thirsts, for the Dark Prince is never satisfied. Slaanesh is not merely lust. The Dark Prince embodies all extremes of sensation, all hungers of the soul, pleasure and pain, pride and shame, triumph and despair. Slaanesh is every desire magnified until it becomes self-destruction. Where Khorne thrives on blood and battle, Slaanesh thrives on the moment after victory, the pride, the arrogance, the intoxication of triumph. Where Nurgle offers comfort in despair, Slaanesh offers release in ecstasy. Where Tzeentch offers ambition, Slaanesh offers fulfillment, only to strip it away, leaving hunger greater than before. To mortals, Slaanesh is a seducer. The prince promises that nothing is forbidden, nothing denied. Every indulgence, every sensation, every dream can be realized, but each indulgence sharpens the hunger. Each dream fulfilled reveals another deeper craving. Slaanesh is the endless spiral of desire, the artist who ruins themselves seeking the perfect creation, the warrior who becomes a slave to battle lust, the lover who destroys all in pursuit of ecstasy. The prince is not simply pleasure, but the truth that pleasure without limit is doom. Within the warp, Slaanesh's domain is called the Palace of Pleasure. It is both paradise and prison, a realm of endless halls, perfumed gardens, gilded chambers, and endless feasts. Every luxury exists within, every delight is offered, every dream is made real. Yet every chamber is a trap. The feast never satisfies, the music never ends, the beauty never fades, but it also never fulfills. Mortals who wander into the palace are lost forever, drowning in their own desires. Some spend eternity feasting without end, others in endless embraces, others in pursuits of perfection that always slip just beyond their grasp. At the center of the palace lies Slaanesh's throne, a seat of shifting beauty that no mortal can look upon without madness. The Dark Prince appears in countless forms, male, female, both, neither, always perfect, always alluring, always terrible. For to gaze upon Slaanesh is to know every desire in your heart, fulfilled and denied at once. Those who turn to Slaanesh are often seekers of sensation, of freedom from restraint. Where Khorne claims the wrathful and Nurgle the despairing, Slaanesh claims the dreamers, the artist who cannot create, the noble who cannot be satisfied, the soldier who craves more than battle. Cults of Slaanesh often begin as gatherings of artists, musicians, nobles, or philosophers, devoted to pushing boundaries. But slowly their revels descend into madness. Music becomes cacophony, art becomes abomination, pleasure becomes agony, and in their cries the Dark Prince whispers. War bands devoted to Slaanesh fight not only for conquest, but for sensation. They are not berserkers like Khorne's warriors, but duelists, killers, and hunters, savoring every strike, every scream. To fight them is to face an enemy who revels in the battle, who drinks ecstasy from both victory and death. If the Eldari birthed Slaanesh, then the Emperor's children became the Dark Prince's chosen mortal children. Once the proud Threed Legion of the Emperor's Space Marines, they were famed for their pursuit of perfection. Their Primarch, Fulgrim, was a being of exquisite beauty and unmatched skill, devoted to art, philosophy, and martial mastery. But perfection is a trap. When the Horus Heresy dawned, Fulgrim was seduced by whispers of Slaanesh. His pursuit of purity became indulgence. His pursuit of mastery became obsession. He carried a demon blade that whispered lies, and in time, he embraced them. The Emperor's children fell utterly. They abandoned honor for indulgence, discipline for ecstasy. They became the Legion of Excess, their armor resplendent in colors of violet and gold, their weapons crafted as instruments of both war and art. Their battlefields became orgies of sensation. Every scream, every strike, every death a symphony. Fulgrim himself was transformed, his form shifting into serpentine beauty, his soul entwined with the Prince of Excess. He became a demon prince, forever bound to Slaanesh, forever leading his sons deeper into damnation. Today, the Emperor's children are the most infamous of Slaanesh's mortal champions, spreading corruption across the galaxy not only through battle but through culture. Where they pass, worlds are left in ruin, not only dead, but damned, their people transformed into cults of indulgence. Slaanesh's demons embody beauty twisted into horror, desire made flesh. Keepers of secrets, vast, elegant monstrosities, towering and terrible. Their forms are both alluring and grotesque, their movements graceful as they slaughter. They whisper promises as they strike, offering ecstasy in exchange for submission. Demonettes, the most common of Slaanesh's servants. They are lithe, graceful, beautiful, and terrible, their bodies shifting to reflect the desires of their victims. With clawed hands and mocking laughter, they dance through battle, slaying with elegance and joy. Fiends of Slaanesh, beastly hybrids of claw, tail, and sinew, radiating an aura of dissonance that shatters the minds of mortals. They embody the terror of desire turned monstrous. Steeds of Slaanesh, swift, serpentine mounts ridden by the Dark Prince's warriors. They move with impossible grace, their speed overwhelming, their cries intoxicating and maddening. Every demon of Slaanesh carries not only the power of war, but the curse of temptation. To face them is to be lured even as you fight, your will unraveling beneath their beauty and terror. No race suffers more under Slaanesh than the Eldari, for their god was born from their own sin. Every Eldari soul belongs to the Dark Prince. When they die, Slaanesh devours them, their essence torn apart in an eternity of torment. To resist this fate, the Eldari created soul stones, psychic gems that capture their essence before it can be taken. These stones are placed within the craft world's infinity circuits, or upon the breastplates of exarchs, keeping their souls safe from the thirst. But always, the shadow of Slaanesh looms. The Drukhari, the Dark Eldar, found another way. They feed upon the suffering of others, draining souls to sustain their own. Yet this too is a form of slavery to Slaanesh. For every scream they draw only feeds the hunger of she who thirsts. Thus the Eldari are a dying race, cursed to be forever haunted by the god they created, forever hunted by the Dark Prince. Slaanesh's dominion is not only lust, it is artistry, obsession, cruelty, indulgence, perfection. The prince claims musicians who hear melodies mortals cannot comprehend, artists who carve flesh into living canvases, warriors who perfect every strike. Even cruelty falls within Slaanesh's grasp. Torturers, killers, sadists, they seek sensation in agony, and Slaanesh answers. To the Dark Prince, pain is as sweet as pleasure, and in the mingling of both lies the highest ecstasy. Every act taken beyond reason, every obsession that consumes, every indulgence that destroys, these are offerings to the prince. Among the pantheon, Slaanesh's greatest rival is Khorne. Rage and lust, fury and passion are close yet opposed. Where Khorne seeks slaughter, Slaanesh seeks the ecstasy of sensation. Khorne despises the decadence of the Dark Prince, while Slaanesh mocks Khorne's refusal to indulge in pleasure. Their realms clash endlessly, their demons at eternal war. With Nurgle, the contrast is stark. Nurgle offers comfort, Slaanesh indulgence. Nurgle promises inevitability, Slaanesh endless hunger. And yet, both share the language of love twisted into damnation. Many who indulge in excess eventually fall into decay, and many who despair in decay turn to indulgence. With Tzeentch, the relationship is subtler, for both thrive on desire, Tzeentch upon ambition, Slaanesh upon fulfillment. Many pawns of the Changer of Ways fall into the prince's embrace when their schemes bring them fleeting triumph. At the heart of Slaanesh lies the truth that nothing is ever enough. The musician never completes the perfect song. The warrior never masters the final strike. The lover never finds the ultimate embrace. Each step forward only reveals another hunger, another desire, another void. This is the doom of Slaanesh's followers. They chase a dream that can never be fulfilled, an ecstasy that always fades. And in the endless pursuit, they are consumed. Slaanesh is the god of too much. Too much beauty, too much art, too much love, too much cruelty. And too much in the end destroys. Thus the galaxy trembles not only with rage, not only with despair, not only with schemes, but with hunger, the hunger for more. Slaanesh was born from indulgence, and indulgence shall always remain. For as long as mortals dream, as long as they crave, as long as they desire, the Dark Prince will feed. But Slaanesh does not reign alone. For the gods of chaos are never content to exist apart. They scheme, they war, they betray, they unite. Their endless rivalry is called the Great Game, a war without end, fought not only in the warp, but across every world in the galaxy. In the heart of the warp, there lies no peace, no unity, no rest. The gods of chaos, vast, eternal, immeasurable, are bound to one another in an endless contest. They are brothers, rivals, reflections of one another's power, eternally entwined in a game that has no beginning and no end. This is the Great Game, the eternal struggle of the ruinous powers, a war of gods waged through pawns and princes, through demons and mortals, through worlds consumed and empires shattered. The Great Game is not a battle fought with armies alone, but with concepts, with emotions, with the very fabric of mortal souls. Each god seeks dominion over the others to see their own principle reign supreme in all creation. Yet none can ever win, for their natures are interlocked. Rage needs ambition. Ambition breeds despair. Despair seeks indulgence. Indulgence fuels rage. Thus, the game is eternal, each god rising and falling in power as the galaxy itself shifts. The tides of war, the fates of empires, the passions of mortals, all become pieces upon the board. To the gods, time has no meaning. A century of slaughter, a millennium of corruption, a billion souls damned, these are but moves in the endless play. No rivalry burns fiercer than that between Khorne, the blood god, and Slaanesh, the prince of excess. They are opposites, yet mirrors. Khorne is fury, discipline, war for war's sake. Slaanesh is indulgence, abandon, ecstasy without limit. To Khorne, Slaanesh is corruption incarnate, a mockery of true battle. To Slaanesh, Khorne is denial, a creature who refuses to taste the pleasures of victory. On the battlefields of the warp, their armies clash endlessly. The howling of bloodletters echoes against the laughter of demonettes. The disciplined fury of crimson legions meets the graceful terror of violet hosts. Neither can destroy the other, for fury always breeds passion, and passion always breeds fury. Their hatred binds them as much as it divides them. Where Khorne and Slaanesh battle in passion, Tzeentch and Nurgle war in philosophy. Tzeentch is change, ambition, schemes, movement, growth. Nurgle is stasis, acceptance, decay, inevitability. To Tzeentch, Nurgle is abhorrent, a god of endings and hopelessness. To Nurgle, Tzeentch is foolish, a child chasing illusions that only lead to despair. Their realms border one another, shifting eternally. In Tzeentch's domain, rivers of fire and seas of possibility shift endlessly. In Nurgle's garden, rot festers and stillness reigns. Their demons clash in eternal war, sorcerous horrors of shifting flame against pestilent monstrosities of rot. Yet even as they war, they need one another. Ambition without decay is meaningless, and decay without the dream of change is despair without contrast. Though rivals, the gods at times ally, for each knows that none can truly destroy the others, and unity offers greater power. Khorne and Nurgle have at times found common cause, both embodying brutal inevitability. Slaanesh and Tzeentch often weave plots together, indulgence and ambition feeding one another. Even across rivalries, bargains are struck, pawns exchanged, champions guided to serve multiple ends. Yet such alliances never last. Betrayal is inevitable, for no god will ever allow another to rise unchecked. Mortals are the pieces upon the board. Champions, cults, empires, all are pawns in the great game. A single warband may serve one god for a time, then turn to another. A mortal may be given gifts by two powers at once, torn between loyalties, until they are consumed by both. The greatest of champions, demon princes, corrupted primarchs, legendary warlords, are the most precious pieces. Each is courted by the gods, used to strike blows against rivals, yet even they are expendable, sacrificed without hesitation when the game demands. The Horus heresy itself was a move within the great game. Horus was elevated not by one god alone, but by all. Each whispered, each offered power, each saw in him a weapon against the emperor. When he fell, all gained and all lost. The warp itself is the battlefield of the great game. Each god's realm borders the others, their demons marching endlessly to war. Khorne's brass citadel stands against the decadent palaces of Slaanesh. Nurgle's rotting garden festers beside the shifting labyrinth of Tzeentch. Between them lie endless battlefields, oceans of blood, forests of flesh, storms of madness. These wars cannot be won, for each victory only fuels the others. When Slaanesh slaughters Khorne's demons, the fury of their death strengthens Khorne. When Nurgle's hosts rot away Tzeentch's creations, the schemes to rebuild only empower Tzeentch. The great game is not only fought in the warp, it is mirrored in the galaxy itself. On mortal battlefields, cults of Khorne clash with cults of Slaanesh. Plague spread by Nurgle corrupts schemes woven by Tzeentch. Even among the servants of chaos, rivalry burns. The Black Legion itself, though sworn to chaos undivided, must balance the demands of each god, lest it be torn apart. Every war, every plague, every indulgence is a reflection of the god's eternal war. Mortals are drawn into it without even knowing, their passions feeding one god or another. Some mortals and demons seek to serve chaos as a whole, rejecting the rivalry of the gods. To them, chaos is one truth, one essence, one power beyond division. They wield the strength of all, swearing allegiance to chaos undivided. The Wordbearer's Legion is one such example, worshippers of chaos itself rather than a single god. Their Primarch Lorgar preaches not indulgence, nor decay, nor fury, nor ambition, but faith in chaos as the one true god. Yet even chaos undivided is a move in the great game. For to unite the gods, even briefly, is to tilt the balance, to shift the eternal struggle. The gods allow it, even encourage it, so long as it serves their ends. The great game ensures that no god can ever truly win. When one rises too high, the others unite to drag them down. When one weakens, they are left to suffer until balance restores. This balance is not peace, but tension. The warp is always in motion, always shifting, always alive with war. The great game is eternal because it cannot end, because the gods themselves are bound by their nature to play forever. To mortals, the great game is invisible. They see only wars, only cults, only demons. They do not know that their passions feed a struggle beyond their comprehension. A single cry of joy, a single act of cruelty, a single moment of despair, each is a move upon the board. The tragedy is this: Mortals believe themselves free, yet they are the pieces of gods. Empires rise and fall, species thrive and die, all because the gods play, and yet the gods cannot stop. For without the game, they would cease to be. Without rivalry, without balance, without endless struggle, chaos itself would unravel. Thus the game continues. Khorne rages against Slaanesh. Nurgle festers against Tzeentch. Alliances form and shatter, victories bloom and wither. And in the end, nothing changes, for change itself is the game. Yet beyond the gods, the pieces suffer. Mortals bleed, mortals rot, mortals dream, mortals fall. They are the cost of every move, the sacrifice of every play. And it is to them we now turn, the cultists, the champions, the damned. The ones who gamble their lives and souls in the hope of power, and in doing so, become both pawns and kings in the eternal game. It begins with a whisper, a promise, a dream of power, of freedom, of salvation. A mortal, frail and finite, gazes into the abyss of the warp, and the warp gazes back. From that moment, their path is no longer their own. For every cultist, every warlord, every would-be champion of chaos, there is only one truth. The cost of power is the soul itself. Every servant of chaos begins as a mortal. A farmer, a worker, a soldier, a noble. Each carries within them the passions that feed the gods. Anger, ambition, despair, lust. When they call out in desperation, the gods answer. Cults form in secret places. Temples carved in forgotten sewers. Shrines in the ruins of war. Gatherings hidden beneath the very cities of the Imperium. Cultists are the lowest of servants, yet they are the most vital. For it is through their worship that the gods' power seeps into the material world. They are the nameless masses who riot in the streets, who topple governments, who offer sacrifices in blood and fire. To the Imperium, they are heretics. To chaos, they are seeds. A cult of 100 can topple a world. A cult of thousands can open a rift to the warp itself. Among cultists, some rise above the rest. They are stronger, hungrier, more ambitious. They crave more than whispers. They seek the touch of the gods themselves. These are the champions of chaos. Warlords, sorcerers, prophets. They lead war bands, command armies, and carve their names into the stars. Each is courted by the gods, each granted gifts in exchange for loyalty. Some become blessed, given strength beyond mortal limits, weapons that bleed fire, armor fused to their flesh. Others become cursed, mutations that twist their bodies into nightmares. Yet even the cursed endure, for to serve chaos is to suffer and grow stronger for it. The path of a champion is one of endless trial. They fight not only their enemies, but each other. Chaos rewards strength and ambition, and punishes weakness with death. Only those who prove themselves again and again survive long enough to rise higher. The champions do not walk alone. They command war bands, bands of traitor marines, renegade soldiers, and heretic psychers. Some are fragments of the ancient traitor legions, still bearing the names of Horus's rebellion. Others are newly turned, chapters and regiments broken by war, seduced by chaos. Each war band is a reflection of its master. Those who serve Khorne march in endless battle, drenched in blood. Those who serve Tzeentch weave plots and sorceries. Those who serve Nurgle spread disease across worlds. Those who serve Slaanesh revel in ecstasy and horror. Together they form the armies of the dark gods, vast, fractured, united only by their devotion to chaos. The gods grant gifts to their champions, but every gift is a curse. A champion of Khorne may grow stronger with each skull claimed, their bodies swelling with rage, until they are little more than a beast. A sorcerer of Tzeentch may master impossible spells, but their flesh melts and shifts with every word spoken. A servant of Nurgle may be blessed with eternal life, but their bodies bloat with disease. A devotee of Slaanesh may experience pleasures beyond imagining, but their senses burn until pain itself becomes ecstasy. The mutations are endless. Claws instead of hands, wings of flesh and bone, eyes that see into the warp, mouths that whisper prophecies. Some champions glory in them, others curse them, but none can refuse them, for the gods give only one kind of gift, the kind that binds. The greatest reward a mortal can achieve is ascension, to be remade body and soul into a demon prince. These beings are no longer mortal, no longer bound by time or flesh. They are part of the warp itself, avatars of their patron gods. Their power rivals that of the mightiest champions of the Imperium, their names feared across the galaxy. Each demon prince is unique, shaped by the path they walked. A warrior of Khorne becomes a towering juggernaut of rage. A sorcerer of Tzeentch becomes a shifting storm of fire and feather. A devotee of Nurgle becomes a bloated monstrosity, spreading disease with every breath. A servant of Slaanesh becomes a being of perfect beauty and terror, their form as alluring as it is deadly. Yet even as demon princes, they are not free. They are eternal servants bound forever to their gods. Their wills may shape worlds, but their fates are still moves in the great game. For every demon prince, there are 1,000 failures. When the gods tire of a servant, or when a mortal seeks power they cannot control. The result is chaos spawn. These wretched creatures are lumps of flesh and madness, their forms twisted beyond recognition. Once proud champions, they crawl and gibber in eternal torment, their minds shattered, their bodies warped. To the gods, they are entertainment. To mortals, they are warnings. For the path of chaos is a gamble, ascend to godhood or fall into oblivion. Throughout history, countless champions have risen to serve the dark gods. Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master of Chaos, successor to Horus, wielder of the demon sword Draconian. He seeks not just victory, but the annihilation of the Imperium. Khorne the Betrayer, champion of Khorne, a berserker whose fury has slain friend and foe alike. Ahriman of the Thousand Suns, sorcerer of Tzeentch, whose rubric spell doomed his legion to eternal dust. Typhus, herald of Nurgle, champion of decay, master of plagues, captain of the Death Guard's Terminus Est, Lucius the Eternal, chosen of Slaanesh, cursed with immortality, his soul possessing any who kill him. Each is both pawn and king in the great game. Each believes themselves free, yet each dances upon strings they cannot see. What is the cost of serving chaos? It is everything. The cultist gives their life. The champion gives their soul. The demon prince gives their eternity. To serve chaos is to abandon hope of peace, of freedom, of rest. It is to embrace damnation willingly, to exchange one's humanity for a chance at glory. Some believe it is worth it. Some revel in it. Some regret it as they are dragged screaming into the warp. But all must pay. Thus the mortal path is laid bare. From the lowliest cultist to the mightiest prince, all are pawns of chaos. They gamble with their lives, with their souls, with the fate of their species. Some rise to glory, others fall into horror. But all pay the cost, and beyond them, beyond the mortals and their bargains, the war rages still. The Imperium, the last bastion of humanity, stands against chaos. And in that endless war lies the truth of all existence, the eternal threat of chaos against the fragile order of man. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And in that war, there is one enemy above all others, the eternal festering wound of chaos. It is the shadow that lies behind every heresy, every rebellion, every whisper of corruption. It is the ancient hunger in the warp that will never be sated. It is the eternal threat that hangs above the Imperium of man like a blade, ready to fall. The Imperium fights, but chaos waits. And chaos always wins, eventually. The Imperium of man, vast beyond comprehension, spans 1,000,000 worlds. It is a fortress of faith and firepower, a bastion of humanity's survival against an uncaring galaxy. Yet its greatest enemy is not Xenos, nor technology, nor rebellion. It is chaos. From the very birth of the Imperium, chaos has stalked mankind. The Horus heresy was but the beginning, a wound that never healed. Every century since has been marked by new uprisings, new incursions, new demonic invasions. The Imperium's armies, the Astra Militarum, the Adeptus Astartes, the Inquisition, the Sisters of Battle, all exist as shields against the corruption of the warp. Yet for all their strength, they fight a losing battle. For every cult crushed, 2 more arise. For every daemon banished, another claws its way into reality. For every victory, chaos whispers defeat into mortal hearts. Chaos is not an empire that can be conquered, nor an enemy that can be slain. It is not a species, nor a nation, nor a singular foe. It is an idea, an essence, an eternal truth. Chaos is the reflection of mortal souls. It is rage and ambition, despair and desire. As long as mortals feel, chaos exists. As long as they dream, chaos grows. To destroy chaos, one would need to strip all life of passion, of will, of thought itself. Such a universe would be lifeless, empty, a void. Thus the Imperium fights an impossible war. They cannot defeat chaos, they can only endure it. Across the galaxy, the battles rage. In the eye of terror, the Black Legion gathers under Abaddon, launching black crusades that tear through Imperial space. On plague-ridden worlds, the Death Guard spread Nurgle's rot, their contagions wiping out billions before the Imperium can respond. In shadowed libraries and hidden cults, The Tzeentch's sorcerers twist fates and weave destinies that undermine imperial rule. In decadent spires and underhives, Slaanesh's cults spread corruption through art, music, and pleasure that turns into damnation. And across every battlefield, Khorne's legions revel in slaughter, their laughter echoing through the screams of the dying. Each battle is not just a struggle for territory, but for souls. To lose a world to chaos is not only to lose its armies or resources, it is to damn its people, to swell the ranks of the god's servants, to feed the great game. Among the Imperium's many weapons, none fight chaos more fiercely than the Inquisition. They are shadows within shadows, wielders of authority beyond law, judge and executioner both. Inquisitors scour the Imperium for heresy, rooting out cults, executing billions to save trillions. To them, mercy is weakness, for even a single whisper of chaos can doom a planet. Entire sectors have been cleansed in fire to prevent corruption from spreading. The Inquisition knows the truth that few dare to speak. The Imperium cannot win. They can only hold back the tide for another day, another year, another century. There is a cruel irony in this eternal war. The Imperium, in its endless struggle against chaos, mirrors chaos itself. The Imperium demands obedience and faith without question, just as chaos demands worship. The Imperium thrives on war, sacrifice and suffering, just as the blood god feasts upon slaughter. The ecclesiarchy spreads hope and faith, fuel for Tzeentch's schemes. The Inquisition enforces despair and acceptance, echoes of Nurgle's gifts, even the pursuit of perfection in the space. Marines in the arts of the Mechanicum echo the temptations of Slaanesh. In fighting chaos, humanity often becomes what it hates. The line between loyalist and heretic blurs, and countless lives are lost to paranoia and zealotry. This is the tragedy of the Imperium. It must embody cruelty to survive, and in doing so, it feeds the very gods it seeks to oppose. The truth is simple. Chaos cannot be destroyed because chaos is us. It is every emotion, every dream, every ambition. It is the reflection of life itself, magnified and twisted in the warp. To destroy chaos would be to destroy mankind. To silence the warp would be to silence thought. The Imperium cannot win because the war is unwinnable, and yet they fight. They fight because to surrender is worse. To surrender is to be consumed, to be remade into something monstrous, to lose not only the body but the soul. This is the eternal paradox of the 41st millennium. There is no victory, only survival. Yet still hope endures. For every world lost, another stands firm. For every heretic, there are billions of faithful. For every demon, there is an inquisitor with a bolter and a prayer. The emperor, silent upon his golden throne, is still the beacon of mankind. His astronomicon guides fleets across the stars. His faith holds back the darkness. His spirit inspires the Imperium to endure, even in silence. He is the shield against chaos. And as long as mankind believes, the Imperium survives. Thus the war endures. Chaos whispers, and the Imperium roars in defiance. Worlds burn, and still the armies march. Demons rise, and still they are banished. The gods laugh, and still humanity prays. There is no ending to this tale. No peace, no final victory. There is only the eternal struggle, the endless war, the balance between order and ruin. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And as long as war endures, so too will chaos. Eternal, patient, unstoppable, the shadow that will never die.